A soft afternoon rain falls on the skyward face of the pond, on the immaculate feathers of the swan floating solo, larghissimo, refreshes the grasses and willows, even more greenly glowing, openly weeping, fills the petite pitchers of wildflowers, bright orange between long dry straws of reeds, moistens the petals of purple loosestrife, ragweed, queenly lace, releases the bouquet of mosses, barks, and loams, brings coolness to the heat, freshness to the heart of the day, and a meditative water music to the midsummer stillness. Welcome to the latest Floating Poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in, whether you're here for the first time or sometimes, or listening in all the time. I'm glad you're part of this show, broadcast 155 in my ongoing weekly series, coming to you live from the watermarked coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet and poetorialist Colin Goedecke, a voice for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. And speaking of this, before we go on, an exciting announcement to make to you. For some time, I've had a vision of bringing forth a way to nourish, uplift, and inspire people even more widely, wonderfully, and welcomely. Beyond these floating poetry broadcasts I've been rippling out these last 3 years. A multidimensional, multisensory way no one else I'm aware of is offering, called the Poetosphere. We have a spirited team working full tilt toward a launch of it by this summer. If you're listening to this later on, it will already be live. There's a curtain raiser up now on the site to give you a taste of what's unfolding and an opportunity to sign up for updates. Then, once we get closer, there'll be an invitation to join us as a member. Just go to thepoetosphere.com, Poetisphere, thepoetosphere.com. I hope it speaks to you, to a vital part of you, and to others seeking enlivenings and enrichings of deeper kinds in these often parching and dehydrating times of ours. Now, back to tonight's broadcast. Well, in show 154, if you heard it, we went down on the farm with an ovation to farming and farmers, to sowing, growing, and harvesting, orchards to corn and wheat fields to vineyards, including celebrating the spirit of the giving sources and stewards of our daily sustenance, all nourishing our bodies, our families and communities, towns and cities, countries, and society. This week, how thirsty are you? Appreciations and contemplations of the ultimate source of all life on earth next to the sun, water. The waters of life that flow to us, around us, visibly and invisibly, expectedly, serendipitously, sometimes rather miraculously. And the aqueous thoughts, feelings, and experiences we all have of so many kinds, small and large, simple and surface to more deep and intimate, involving water. So, let's drink in, sip, or quaff, as you're moved to, the cultural commentary, poetry, and shared inquiry I have for us around this theme. On our water coursing, let's begin in the clouds. Percy Bysshe Shelley, a Romantic era poet. I'm just going to give you the opening of his poem, The Cloud. I bring fresh showers for the thirsting flowers, from the seas and the streams. I bear light shade for the leaves when laid in their noonday dreams. From my wings are shaken the dews that waken the sweet buds, every one, when rocked to rest on their mother's breast as she dances about the sun. I wield the flail of the lashing hail and whiten the green plains under, and then again I dissolve it in rain and laugh as I pass in thunder. Thank you, Shelley, The Cloud. On Adam Van Doren's painting, Storm Clouds. Storm clouds. Suddenly, thunderously, a great artery in the heart of the sky bleeds forth its beauty. Wild, sea-like luminosities of greens, blues, hidden energies, pours forth its humors. Lois Red Elk for her granddaughter Wakawin. All thirst quenched. I didn't want to scold the sky that year, but Grandma's words taunted my senses. If there is a thirst, then you need to pity the flowers in a loud voice. Ask the frogs why they are being punished. Stomp on the ground and talk to the dried clay about cracking open the earth. I know challenging the storm is risky. Last but not least, burn cedar and pray the lightning doesn't strike your town. That night, the stars disappeared. So did the birds. Perhaps it was the season for rain or the dance. In the western distance, we thought we heard cannon blasts. Looking over, we watched the horizon fill with lightning strikes. Rain couldn't pour hard enough over the thirsty plain. Accompanying clouds called to thunder's voice in extreme decimals, requesting all the water heaven could send forth to come. Rain and more rain filled empty stream bottoms. Rivers who had pulled their dry banks farther and farther from their center begged for a drink to startle dusty beds with a flooding roar. Lives in dormant places began to stir and awaken. The lives of water beings, those that swim, the ones that hop, and the ones that fly, begin to stir. That year, all thirst was quenched. Thank you, Lois Red Elk. William Carlos Williams, who also was a practicing physician, as well as a practicing poet. Flowers through the window, lavender and yellow, changed by white curtains. Smell of cleanliness, sunshine of late afternoon. On the glass tray, a glass pitcher, the tumbler turned down, by which a key is lying in the immaculate white bed. Thank you, William Carlos Williams. Well, I was going to save these questions for a little later in the program, but I said, well, maybe we'll step them up here for us. Questions about water and your thirstiness. What are any vivid memories you hold of being greatly thirsty? How old were you? Where were you? What was happening? And how did you manage to satisfy your thirst? What wonderful moments have you had drinking water, whether from a water fountain, a mountain stream, maybe a fresh rainwater on your tongue, a refreshing mouthful of sparkling mineral water? And what about bathing, indoors or in the great out of doors? In a wonderful bath or shower? And what do you enjoy most about it, in body or spirit? And what about swimming somewhere, maybe in a beautiful pool or a lake or an ocean or elsewhere? And have you ever taken the waters, as they say, maybe in a hot spring, or at some old world spa, or at a fabled healing place like Lourdes, France? Have you ever thought how precious water actually is, and how many people in the world don't have enough of it, or have access to clean water? Are you mindful of the source of the water you depend on wherever you live, where it actually comes from? For many in the Western world, where I am, we turn on a tap without a second thought, and there it is, always. Voila, like magic. Well, can you imagine if it was scarce or not dependable when you turned on the tap, or not safe, not drinkable? Hard to contemplate that. And are you aware wars are already being fought and will be increasingly waged over water? Water wars in North America, South America, the whole world over. Yes. Well, beyond this, there are many other thirsts we can have. From a thirst for knowledge or beauty, for love, for joy, for peace of mind or being. Likewise, the need to stay hydrated. But I say not just physically. What about being emotionally hydrated? Or the opposite? Intellectually hydrated, spiritually, culturally? Maybe contemplate that. I do from time to time. And is there something you're thirsting for in your life right now? For something inward or something outward? Something vital, something life-giving in a larger way or life-sustaining? Why are you thirsty for whatever it is? And what might be the source that answers that thirst? Oh, some questions, maybe others to come, but later. But those are some for now, for you, for us. Seeker. Whoever you are, wherever and however you are, I tell you, even now, there are waters, great waters, of aliveness, deep inside your being. Ones yet to be found, yet to behold, be tasted. A great river of aliveness, wholeness, and possibility flowing within you. The same river that flows through the living world, the natural world, that flows from the same source, that follows a course all mighty rivers follow, to a greatly opening, welcoming sea. Darrell Gray. Today is water. Today is water flowing from the faucet. I shave, noticing a smear the rain left on the window. Outside, dark pools are lying on the ground. Leaving the house, I see myself in the water, smaller in the smallness of the pool. Thank you, Darrell Gray. Well, we have water in many forms, and we certainly have it in the form of ice. Well, here, this was at anchor in Sanford Cove in the Inside Passage of Southeast Alaska, July 2009, involving ice that we had hacked off from a nearby iceberg. Along a wilderness journey I was on a small boat years ago. Whiskey and ice. The tip of an iceberg sits in a bowl on the small table in the cabin. Pure and ancient ice, at least 100 times older than our 12-year-old single malt, that we chip into 3 glasses and sip slowly, reverently. Whiskey and ice. That was quite a night of honoring that journey. How about a bit of irreverence for us? Turning wine into water. That other miracle that occurs daily, nightly, from New Canaan to Newcastle, at wedding feasts and village fetes, and high and humble tables, a miracle that's small and personal and particularly human, where the body of each imbiber, in short order, turns red and white wine into water. Yeah. I always feel like as a Catholic boy, I'm probably lightning bolts supposed to come down and hit me when I do things like that, but it's all playful. And yes, I do have some glasses of water here, nice cold water, to hydrate me as we go, liquefy the occasion. Richard Barnes, watering the lawn. to feel the mist of mint julep down my throat, to watch the water erupt and clouds turn salmon as my sons play beyond the street with the boys who lob oranges into the swimming pool, and like us, is a good fate. The kids on their bikes, they make a little fun of me because I'm old enough to make love to the earth by bringing this temporary dominion to growth, as the richness of our lives leaks out in worries around the sure things, like the water running out of this broken faucet that my wife says I should fix, that someday I will, after the roses, the pool, my personality. To love this song of water. The insects work their garden long into the sun, and the apples, still far away, dream October. Thank you, Richard Barnes. Here's a favorite one of mine. Maybe could be yours too in a minute. Ted Kooser, who was twice former U.S. Poet Laureate, and the only one from the Great Plains ever that I know about. Dishwater. Slap of the screen door. Flat knock of my grandmother's boxy black shoes on the wooden stoop, the hush and sweep of her knob-kneed cotton apron stride out to the edge, and then towed in with a furious twist and heave, a bridge that leaps from her hot red hands and hangs there shining for 50 years, over the mystified chickens, over the swaying nettles, the ragweed, the clay slope down to the creek, over the red-winged blackbirds in the tops of the willows, a glorious rainbow with an empty dishpan swinging at one end. Wonderful. Dishwater, Ted Kooser. Thank you for that. David Wagoner has this lyrical, botanical poem, The Water Lily. As slowly, as carefully as a wading bird, the elderly Japanese photographer comes down stone steps under leaves through pale green light to the pond and wavers at the brink where a single water lily, white around gold, lies open. Bending, he stares long and, bending farther, moves along the bankside, pauses again to gaze, to focus at last, to shift. To hesitate, to lift his eyes among wrinkles, to lift one shoulder and one slow corner of his mouth, to take no picture, but slowly to turn away, to take nothing away but his mind's eye. The Water Lily. Thank you, David Wagner. New to me, knew that poem. A poem of mine from North Stonington, Connecticut, September 2020, which was honoring annual Dahlia Day there on a beautiful horse farm and gardens flowing with thousands of different dahlias, sort of award-winning types of dahlias that you could buy if you wanted and take with you, take home. This is Dear Dahlia. Dicotyledonous diva, sister of the sun, the sunflower, daisy, and zinnia. Before the Spanish conquest, acocotle, root food for the gods-loving Aztecs, medicine for their epileptics, water piping for their freshwater drinking. You, doubly perennially bright-faced darling, brightening gardens in the hearts of gardeners alike, seeding, then flowering out into 1780s Spain, Dresden, Paris, Holland, Royal Kew, then all points of the temperate earth, each and since gladly starring and coloring the autumn days, this near Indian summer day, here across the fields of this sunny country farm. Yes, we're not the only ones who bathe, yeah? Flowers bathe, animals bathe. This is Christine Stewart's poem, Cypresses Bathing. On my way, I come upon them, a gathering of old women soaking their cracked, graying skin, their thick bodies sprawling voluptuously. Knees bent, curving out of the water, heads thrown back in a tangle of vines and leaves. I pause a moment, waiting to hear their voices echoing with years, telling me what I need to know, but the sun has made them sleepy and secretive. I hear only their whispered laughter. They do not trust me. I am not yet ready to listen. Thank you, Christine Stewart. Some of you may remember, maybe not who wrote it or said it, but water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. That was Samuel Taylor Coleridge from The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And the speaker was a sailor on a becalmed ship who's surrounded by salt water that he cannot drink. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. Which made me think about not only types of water, but water conditions. So I was thinking, of course, there are floods, and then we go all the way to the other end of it, of the droughts. Here's Gary Soto's poem, The Drought. The clouds shouldered a path up the mountains east of Ocampo, and then descended, scraping their bellies gray on the cracked shingles of slate. They entered the valley and passed the roads that went trackless, the houses blown open, their cellars creaking and lined with the bottles that held their breath for years. They passed the fields where the trees dried thin as hat racks and the plow's tooth bit the earth for what endured. But what continued were the wind that plucked the birds spineless, and the young who left with a few seeds in each pocket, their belts tightened on the fifth notch of hunger, under the sky that deafened from listening for rain. Thank you, Gary Soto. The Drought. Well, I thought, of course, about the absence of water and history in our country, among other countries, past and present. This was, of course, the famous Dust Bowl in American history, not that far back, actually. And from history.com on that, reference on that was the name given to the drought-stricken southern plains region of the U.S., which suffered severe dust storms during a drought in the 1930s. As high winds and choking dust swept the region from Texas to Nebraska, people and livestock were killed, and crops failed across the entire region. The Dust Bowl intensified the crushing economic impacts of the Great Depression and drove many farming families on a desperate migration in search of work and better living conditions. And you might have read The Grapes of Wrath, Steinbeck's classic novel, and also the film with Henry Fonda of that incredible film based on that book. Encourage you to see that if you haven't, or see it again. Yes, look what did happen, can happen when there's not enough of it, not enough water. Langston Hughes has a poem about it, Dust Bowl. The land wants me to come back to a handful of dust in autumn, to a raindrop in the palm of my hand in spring. The land wants me to come back to a broken song in October, to a snowbird on the wing. The land wants me to come back. Thank you, Langston Hughes. And then, to counter all that, this is from study.com on rain dancing, the Native American rain dance, ceremonial dance performed by Native American dancers to summon spirits of the gods to cleanse the earth with rain. The approval of the spirits ensured that crops would grow and the entire tribe would be sustained with the food thereof. Rain was also the symbol of forgiveness, and it was most used in the arid climates of the southwest region of the United States by the Pueblo, the Navajo, the Hopi, and the Mojave natives. So maybe we need to do some rain dancing more often, not just leave it to the Native Americans, although they're the best at it. They've been practicing it for many generations. Yeah. Okay. I also wanted to mention Oasis. I was curious what else I didn't know about it, and you maybe not either, from Wikipedia. Because don't we have some kind of strong mental association when we hear that, like an oasis in the desert? For me, it conjures up that kind of scene, and also that famous scene in Lawrence of Arabia, the movie, with that classic David Lean film. Well, it turns out, it says, oases in the Middle East and North Africa cover about 1,000 hectares. That's 10,000 kilometers. However, they support the livelihood of 10 million inhabitants. The stark ratio of oasis to desert land in the world means that the oasis ecosystem is, quote, relatively minute, rare, and precious. As I guess it does feel, yes, when we think of it. Some books that might interest you. This is called Almost Nothing, this one, by the poet Hiroshi Osada. Japanese illustrated poems celebrating water and the wonder of life. In there, there's a quote from there. It has no shape but can take any shape. You can touch it, but you cannot hold it. It can slip through your fingers like it's nothing at all, but life would be unthinkable without it. There's bodies of water and that allow us the pleasures of boating and fishing and diving. And this is a book called The Joy of Swimming. It's an illustrated celebration of water as a medium of bodily, mental, and spiritual movement. Delightful book by Lisa Congdon, artist. It's a celebration of our love for getting in the water. And she says in there, from the history of the bathing suit to Rumi, a loving homage to aquatic bliss. From profiles of trailblazers like Gertrude Ederle, the first woman to swim across the English Channel, and everyday swimming aficionados across all walks of life, to curious water-related trivia, to the history of swimming, ephemera, and architecture. The book, as the Marginalian writes, is a jubilant ode to our relationship with the water as a medium of bodily, mental, and spiritual movement. Which led me to come back to a poem of mine from Chapel Pond, Rocky Peak Ridge, the Adirondacks, Keene Valley, New York State, July 2015. Yeah, on the freshness and refreshment of water, the sweetness, and also the sacredness. Chapel Pond. There is a kind of holiness here, an enveloping stillness, a sacred space fragrant with innocence, an unmade shrine of pure waters, woods, rock faces, and sunlight, dappled, rippling shade, to bless the body in, refresh the body in. So when I stand on the near bank to dry, warm, and behold you backstroking through the middle of the quarry dark, quarry deep water, I'm not surprised to see the sun gild your sleek head and set your long outspread arms alight into angel wings. Chapel Pond. If you go up to the Adirondacks, I encourage you to visit there and maybe have a swim. Have a bathe, as the Brits say. Who shares good feelings like these? The solitude of the shower. In this white-tiled temple, all is pure, all is quiet, save for the sound of clear water falling and cleansing. The light that pours through the window and drawn white curtain is luminous, like the wet skin of my arms and legs, of my open hands and feet, of my glistening face reflected in the mirror on the shelf where fragrant bars of olive and citrus soap rest. In this warm bubble where I can be wholly alone with myself, where it's always safe, always welcoming, always full of solitude. Here's another. This is from the Yucatan Peninsula. Sin sal, without salt. You enter the hot shower at that tile-cool time of day. Clear, cleansing water washes away the salt of the day's sea and air, slips over your body like a second skin, warms you through like liquid sun after the sun has set, and before fresh clothes are put on and fruit drinks are poured and lanterns are lit for dinner. Sin sal, without salt. Here's a book on Water as a Portal to Transcendence by Ellen Meloy, M-E-L-O-Y. The Anthropology of Turquoise, Reflections on Desert, Sea, Stone, and Sky. And here's a line from it, a couple of lines. The sea holds an abundance of comfort and inspiration and danger, all that a person needs in order to rise to the full largesse of beauty. It seems that if you allow this beauty to become a blank, if you turn your back to the blues and deny your dependence on them, you might lose your place in the world. Your actions would become small, your soul disengaged. Good book. Well, George Friedrich Handel made his water music on on river barges in 1717, as some of you know, for King George I of England, who was quite delighted with it all. He asked for many performances of it. But there are other kinds of water music like this that I heard in the names of the lakes of the town of Killarney in northern Ontario in Canada in the summer of 2012 there. Water music. Chickanishing, Shagog, de la Mondière, Log Boom, Little Superior, Bell, Bizieux, Cat, Panache, Clear Silver, Round Otter, Johnny, Nellie, and George, Three Narrows, Killarney, Grace. Water music. Like the sound of rain, yes? Certainly to me, maybe to you too, maybe to many. Conjures up all kinds of senses and feelings beyond the listening, beyond the pure auditory. And as a dear friend said, the rain finds places no one ever sees, much like the privacy of the soul. Raining in, pattering down, sussing and syncopating in the late night hours, the sound of wet, soft water music, freshly, clearly beading and rilling into the ears of the house, into your ears, the pores of your skin, the shores of your limbs, breath, heart, places beyond your thoughts, awakening time present, times past, past lives, listening like this, to this sky water falling, quietly singing to you, calling to you, finding and gently filling you, cleansing and softening, and so airily calming and comforting you. Who isn't enchanted by waterfalls? This is Stephen Ratcliffe's poem, Waterfall. Over glacial smooth granite the current sweeps as it must, swift in the white rush of winter. Yellowed leaves of the aspen have raced here, down with purling drops that are spilled, sounding the air. Now in a cleft where the pool is still, the leaves under ice lie, stained and watery cold. And at the falls, ringed against the deepened chill of the blue, clear sluice pours itself in the glare. Waterfall. Thank you. Stephen Ratcliffe. Well, imagine being in a kayak below a great immensity of nature and water. This was kayaking in Ford's Terror, Endicott Arm, Southeast Alaska, 2009. Water falling. Water falls thousands of feet down the sheer stone face. Fjorded light falls down the tree-banistered glacial ridge below the elbow of Endicott Arm, as the rush of the race of the rapids rises up, revels up past earth and ears into the morning air. Linda Pastan, Water Wheel. Afraid of sleep, the child asked for one more drink of water. You hold my face between your two hands, as steadily as if I were a cup about to spill. Remember this morning how the ocean's edge unraveled at our feet, tangling us in its accidental lace. You said we know what water is, although we never swim in other oceans. Sometimes I dream of sitting in a waterfall, of letting it churn like white fur over my naked shoulders. It is fidelity you meant, the stillness at the center of the whirlpool. The waves are taking our island inch by inch, an army that will overrun us soon. You want a life as simple as a cup of rain. But see how my reflection wavers even in this glass. I think you'd throw cold water in my face to wash temptation out. The waterfalls of sleep tumble over us. I ask for one more icy sip of water. Thank you, Linda Pastan. Back in the spring of 1999, I had this lovely moment in Woodstock, New York, close to living nature, to living water, Saturday stream, Whenever I read it, I go right back there, close my eyes and go back. After. Cold water rushes over copper rocks. Iced water falls from melting mountain tops, pouring fish and smooth stones downstream to the clear, silver, swishing sound of cold water washing over copper rocks. Think of water as a great purifier, literally and figuratively. This was on a New Year's Day here in Rhode Island in Watch Hill, above the night sea, beginning of January 1st in 2021, 2 years back. A first rain for a new year. Pours down clear and cold through the last hours of the first day of this new year. All the unclouded rainwater cleansing everything it reaches, blessing like a sacramental rain wine everything it touches, washing away old hurts and faults, griefs, regrets, purifying time and place, making way for life, this precious life, to begin afresh. If there was a last time, or a time, when was a time you stood out bareheaded, even entirely bare to the skin in a big rain? Well, if never, maybe sometime you will. This was in August 2016, a great rain. It rushes down from the suddenly ink-black clouds, with a sheer waterfall sound occluding everything else from hearing. A vertical river flowing in a fresh condensation, a watery syncopation of unstrung beads tinged with the color of the summer showering green leaves. A monsoon in miniature I stand under as it quenches, washes over my upturned face, my thirsting self, the thirsting earth beneath my feet. The jubilance, the refreshment, the meditativeness of fountains. That's the reason I chose the visual poem for this show, which is the splashing fountain you see, and it happens to be in front of the Plaza Hotel in New York City, that image. But this was composed on the Mayan coast of Mexico in the winter of 1998. Fuente de la lluvia, fountain of rain. Rain falls from the rim of cool stone into the painted blue and yellow-tiled fountain, its glassy tiles submerged and luminous in the glow of underwater light. The freshening sound of rain falling from the rim of cool stone, like pure spring drops plinking into puddles. The soothing sound of rain falling from the rim of cool stone on a languid blue night dreaming with stars. I sometimes give us a little science, but there are things you may know, but I wanted to go back and remind myself. This was from Harvard University Graduate School of Arts and Sciences on why is water necessary for life. And we know it makes up most of our human body weight. They say 60 to 75%. A loss of just 4% leads to dehydration, and a 15% can be fatal. Likewise, you could survive a month without food, but only 3 days without water. So it governs all life forms, vital for survival. And they have in this article on the biological roles of water, if you want to read the rest of it, why is it so necessary? So they go into all of the interesting details about that. New Water, Sharon Chmilartz's poem. All those years, almost 100, the farm had hard water, hard orange, buckets lined in orange, sink and tub and toilet too, once they got running water. And now, in less than a lifetime, just by changing the well's location, in the same yard, mind you, the water's soft, clear, delicious to drink. All those years to shake your head over. Look how sweet life has become. You could see it in the couple who live here, their calmness as they sit at their table, the beauty as they offer you new water to drink. Thank you, Sharon Chmilartz, new poet, new to me. I mentioned this to a friend I was talking about this upcoming broadcast too, about virtual water, which I never heard of, and water footprints. Just like carbon footprints, we have apparently water footprints, or could calculate them. Well, it's the water that's hidden, quote, hidden in the products, services, and processes people buy and use every day. It goes unseen by the end user of a product or service, and it's consumed throughout the value chain. And so it's a virtual water versus direct water that comes directly from a pipe or spigot. So interesting. You might want to think about that. I mentioned water wars at one point, and there's an article about that from livescience.com, what you need to know about the world's water wars. And part of it was also about that some places are sinking because the giant aquifers below them are being pumped out. So places like Beijing are actually going down at a rate of, in their case, 4 inches a year. So that news to me, something we ought to be paying attention to. Likewise, how many people don't have access to clean water? Now, Blog Action Day in 2010 said that 1 billion people on the planet at that point couldn't get what most of us get, which is a glass of clean, safe drinking water. That's 1 of 8 in us can't get it. And that added to that was 38 million children who died from waterborne diseases every week. Well, I think that's rather alarming. I can't imagine now, 13 years later, what that actually is. Yeah. Wow. So, all the more precious our water to value, and also maybe be conscious of how we can help others have more clean water and more drinking water. I also wanted to mention, this is something I actually do use, structured water. This is from dancingwithwater.com. They have a couple of different articles on full spectrum living water, structured water, and they talk about the unique molecular structure of water. There's a pattern in there, and it's liquid crystal pattern. It's true, scientifically, and so it needs to have that, and because those crystals move together like a school of fish, so it's organized water and living water, and it helps us be healthy and have a smooth flow of energetic information in our bodies. And so as much as there's living water, there's water that is not living, that is not alive. And even though it looks like water and maybe tastes like water, it's entirely different in its value, I guess I would say. So something to understand. And you might want to read that piece. I wanted to, of course, talk about other kinds of waters, like the waters of the heart. Certainly, when it comes to love, but I had a handful of poems. But in order to keep in good time with you, I'm just going to read one of them for now, and save the others for another time. If that's okay with you, we'll do it that way. This was from the summer of 2013. It's called "You, a River," and it was for a once great love. You and your ever flow, your fresh water, free water, white water way of being. Your eddies, channels, bright ice flows in winter, green currents in summer. You, carrier of secrets, sediments, dark and shining fish. Nourisher of nature, smoother of stones, spirits. Maker of canyons, deltas, lush living banks and brooks. Source to mouth, Krenin, Rithron, Potamon, ever seaward, through sunlit valleys, vast plains, deep mountainsides. Constant, yet never the same twice, moment to moment. Mutable, yet always the same in your riverness, moment to moment. Let's return a little bit to the pauses and pleasures of the bath, and that feeling actual and anticipated of easing and soothing, warming and floating. This is sit back. Run yourself a bath. While it's running, pour yourself a drink. A smooth vino rosso or other aperitivo. Put on Coleman Hawkins or Russ Columbo. Have a slow dance with your partner or a slow kiss. Slip out of your clothes into your bath. Sit back. Close your eyes. Let your breath flow, your body float. Your cares and concerns dissolve in the warm, languid waters. from Shelter Harbor here in Rhode Island. A double bathing, I guess we could say. Bathing for the autumn moon. Bathing first in the deep, bone-hot water of the Japanese soaking tub. Still sun-browned limbs floating, hands floating like open flowers in the round, white cistern filled to the chin. Then stepping out into the breathing night air to bathe in the cool light of the autumn moon and the showers of meteors raining down in silver drops from Orion's near brightest star. Bathing. Interesting, all of this. All of this talk of water is making me awfully thirsty tonight. Sponge Bath by Terry Kirby Erickson. Draped in towels, my grandmother sits in a hard-backed chair, a white bowl of soapy water on the floor. She lifts her frail arm, then rests it gratefully in her daughter's palm. Gliding a wet washcloth, my mother's hand becomes a cloud, and every bruise a rain-drenched flower. Lovely. Thank you, Terry Kirby Erickson, from her collection In the Palms of Angels. Well, friends, down to our last musings and sharings for this week and time together. Rachel Carson on the Ocean of Ongoingness. This is from her wonderful, wonderful book, The Sea Around Us. On all these shores there are echoes of past and future, of the flow of time, obliterating yet containing all that has gone before, of the sea's eternal rhythms, the tides, the beat of surf, the pressing rivers of the currents, shaping, changing, dominating, of the stream of life, flowing as inexorably as any ocean current from past to unknown future. The meaning haunts and ever eludes us, and in its very pursuit we approach the ultimate mystery of life itself. By Judith Perlzweig. Poems by a Child. Pretty Things. Cloud Water. I shall ride through the sky on a star, on blue water and green water and white water. Cloud water. Thank you, Judith Perlzweig. Lovely. And speaking of children, here's a piece that I recently wrote in honor of little Charlotte Hargreaves on her 3rd birthday. I'm a kind of a Dutch uncle for her. Her dad is one of my dearest friends, soul brother. Her birthday was 14th of March of 2023, and this was for her. 3 coins in the fountain. Each one tossed in the fountain of your heart. Each one kissed with a wish for your happiness. Each one shining in the life waters where you float, where you swim, where you dream. Love out to her as she grows and comes to understand that poem, can read it for herself. Next to last, The World as It Is by Carolyn Miller. No ladders, no descending angels, no voice out of the whirlwind, no rending of the veil or chariot in the sky, only water rising and falling and breathing springs and seeping up through limestone, aquifers filling and flowing over, russet stands of prairie grass and dark pupils of black-eyed Susans. Only the fixed and wandering stars, Orion rising sideways, Jupiter traversing the southwest like a great firefly, Venus trembling and faceted in the west, and the moon appearing suddenly over your shoulder, brimming and ovoid, ripe with light, lifting slowly, deliberately, wobbling slightly, while far below the faithful sea rises up and follows. Beautiful. Thank you, Carolyn Miller. That's from her collection, Light Moving. And last for now, till we come together again, the waters. The ones that anoint you, body and soul, that fall from the heavens in the form of rain, soft and clear, that fall from the sun and moon in showers of pure light, that rise from your heart to your eyes as tears of joy, when great joy is there, or deep presence, or great sadness, that bathe you in their beauty, blue oceans to mirror-faced lakes, all the waters of life, aliveness, that flow through your days, that can always find you, fill you, body and soul. Thank you again for leaning in, listening, and feeling in, drinking in this broadcast, the agua fresca of this week's chosen cultural commentary, poetry, and inquiry. All thanks, too, for sharing these shows with others. Do feel free to post the show link or the whole playlist onto friends or to your social media so we can grow more good listeners. I do invite your comments, your reflections, and affirmations, as always, and likewise, your donations. They are very helpful. Keep them coming. Is there a theme you'd like me to shape a future broadcast around? If so, send me an email, colin@thepoetorialist.com. And what about your experience of this show? And how thirsty are you? I would love to know. If you are making a contribution, that would be grand. You can use Venmo to fivefold, FIVEFOLD @pipeline.com, or PayPal to the same email. Or simply mail a check to me at P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island 02891, or donate through my site, thepoetorialist.com, by way of the Donate tab. Beyond this, patrons can, yes, sponsor or host me as a working poet in residence for an agreed time in an agreed place in the U.S. or elsewhere in the world to create a new flight, poetic art, dedicated to them. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online on YouTube on the floating poetry playlist. And you can find out more about the newly announced coming of the Poetosphere at thepoetosphere.com. That's the POETISPHERE.com. I hope you'll lean in here soon again. Until then, dear listeners, let's be ever grateful for the gifts of water. Never take them for granted. From the clean water we have to drink and bathe in, to the waters that feed us with the bounty of their fish, to the beauty of their form, rivers and lakes to waterfalls and sparkling seas, the grace of rain from clouds and skies. And may your thirst of all kinds, literal to figurative to imaginal, always be quenchable. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.